ultimately, we all have to take a first step. If we desire, and I'm speaking more from a self-love standpoint, we all have to take that first step to connecting to self-love and knowing who we are and who we desire to show up as in this world. And it sounds like you've taken not only your first step, but you've hit the ground running now and you have your flow. So if you were to give one or two pieces of advice to young people who are coming up, or even, let's not even say young people, just anyone, because there are plenty of people who are well in their years who are still on that journey of self-discovery and self-love. What advice could you give someone who's navigating that path, since you've kind of walked it now and had to clear the vines and brush and everything that goes along with finding your way through that?
Yeah, I mean, that's an incredible question, and I think it's different for everybody. So I don't know if there's a blanket answer for it, but I'll do my best. I think the thing for me is, it kind of came back to just asking questions and thinking about things more critically. The thing that kind of peeves me a little bit is people that don't think for themselves. And they just take blanket statements as truth of like, this is the way it is. Think like this, do this. And this comes back to the whole conversation of media, all that. We don't need to get into that. But, I don't care what you think. I don't care what you believe, as long as it is what you think and believe. So I remember at one point, I remember thinking like one of my missions in life was to help people think critically. Because I think if you really think for yourself, you're taking time to sit back and analyze things and question things and just not believe everything you hear right away. I think one of my mentors said at one place, it's a mark of an educated person to entertain an idea and not take it as true. I think I kind of butchered that, but that's the general concept of like being able to just listen and hear people out and not say like, okay, that's what it is. But like take a second to like think about it. And I would have to say, like, in that same vein is something that's been very helpful for me is just taking time to think. I don't think many people do that. And I think that's what separated me from a lot of people is that I do take time to sit and think. I mean, I went to Utah for a week by myself. I do solo trips. I think they're really, really powerful. Some people think I'm crazy for doing them, but it gives you time and it gives you space to actually think. Because is actually the guy I first followed podcast. He talked about this. I thought this was a really profound point is that how do you get to know somebody? You spend time with them. You connect with them. You're not on Instagram, you're not watching Netflix with them. You sit and you have a conversation with them, just like what we're doing. How do you get to know yourself the same way? You're not going to hang out with yourself just doing work, Netflix, or whatever it is, or even reading a book or music. Any personal development is great, but it's still not actually spending time with yourself. So I think it's really important to like take that time. Even over the last week, I've made a point to go to like Poplarville Park and just like chill and sit with myself and think. There's a book called The Road Less Stupid. Great title. It talks about that thinking time. Like just give yourself some space. Like think about that stuff. What do I want? What do I desire? What is the challenge right now? What's my priorities right now? If you just give yourself a little bit of time to like sit there with yourself and kind of like think through it, most of the time you can figure stuff out. And I've just really noticed that because even today, I was kind of thinking like some of the sales stuff that I've been doing hasn't been performing as well as I wanted to. And I'm like, why is this? I'm like, well, maybe I should sit down and like think about this a little bit instead of just like going and doing. And I think it helped immensely that I just slowed down, took a second to think, and then the answers started coming.
So in many ways, that's an active meditation. You're not sitting with your eyes closed and which is a beautiful form of meditation. There's another way to connect within that doesn't require that type of meditation, which I know now there are many people who are shying away from that form because they don't feel that they can get to that point yet. So they're too busy doing to suddenly shift everything off and just sit in that type of a meditative state. So what you're offering is that middle ground, what you were talking about with the video, right? Just choose one entry point. What you're explaining is an entry point into meditation where there's kind of that median. You don't have to sit in meditation with your eyes closed to be with yourself. You can just sit and ask yourself questions about what's important to you and what you need to do. And then that connects you with yourself, to know yourself, and then to love yourself.
And I think another really powerful piece that I definitely want to make sure we hit on is journaling and reflecting and writing things down. And on top of that is actually going back to all the journal entries and like think about where I was. Like say, oh, that's what I was thinking. But because the cool thing is about journaling and going back to those is like when you're writing stuff, you're usually in an emotional state where you're processing a lot of this stuff. But then you go back to that a couple weeks later, months later, even years later, and you're like, oh, wow, that's where I was. You kind of look at things from a more objective standpoint. And so you're not so much like in it, you're kind of above it. And I think at the end of the day, really what this all kind of comes back down to is awareness. And I think that's always kind of the first step. The more awareness that you can get on your life, the more you'll be set up. And the only way that you can be aware is if you do take that time. And I think it's really powerful to document it. And it's funny how I've transitioned a lot in my life because when I heard about like spirituality and meditation, I'm just, I need that. Like, I'm good. Thank you though. Same thing for journaling. I was like, I don't have time to do that. Like, what am I going to write down? Like, that seems like a waste of time. And now I feel like it's essential. I feel like I can't operate without it.
Yeah.
So I think it's slowing down because here's one other thing I'll say about it is that I read this book called The Master Key System, and there's a lot of great stuff in there. But there was one thing that really stuck out to me and it said, a single idea can be worth millions of dollars. But the only way that you're actually going to have those ideas if you give yourself space to have them and slow down and be receptive for those ideas. Because if you're just going and doing, you have no space to like receive that.
Very true. And if you look at some of the most successful, or what we might deem as successful individuals in the world, they practice that flow. And so there has to be space in order to receive. And I love that. And I am an avid meditation individual. I love meditating, but I do honor the fact that we're in a very do-oriented world. And so to ask someone to go from, I get up at 6 a.m., I have to get the kids ready and then get them to school and go to work and then come home, pick them up from school, get dinner ready, then log back on to work at 8 o'clock to wrap up. And where is there time to like stop and meditate within there? We can't just say, oh, well, that's the solution. Providing those steps that can allow them to just gradually step away and take those few moments to themselves, I think that's pivotal, because connecting with self-love and knowing of self isn't about creating more judgment on ourselves of, I failed because I couldn't carve out 15 minutes to meditate. But if you offer a solution like, hey, you don't need 15 minutes to meditate, you take 5 minutes to step into a room by yourself and just ask yourself a couple of questions. That's an amazing opportunity where now we're not creating self-judgment, we're creating self-actualization opportunities.
And I think it's like you saying that asking yourself questions, I think I've even realized recently it's really powerful to ask these questions out loud. Like have conversations with yourself out don't know, some people might look at you like crazy, but
It's okay.
it's okay.
Aren't we all a little crazy?
Yeah, pretty much. I have a good friend that like shared that with me, and he would always ask himself a question: what do I desire? What does Nick desire right now? What am I grateful for? Actually ask yourself these questions. And sometimes you don't even need to necessarily answer them. Because I learned a long time ago, sometimes I forget about this. His name is Noah St. John. I believe his book was called The Secret Code of Success. And he took the approach of that affirmations aren't necessarily the best way to go. Instead, ask yourself questions, because our brains are like a search engine. It's just like when you plug something into Google, you ask them a question, you get a bunch of answers. And again, coming back to like the whole conversation about questions, is the quality of your questions determine the quality of your life, because they determine the quality of your answers. But it can really be on a subconscious level where you just ask the question and your brain just goes out and searches for them. You don't have to answer it right there. But I think it's been powerful for me to like ask myself those questions, especially when you like don't feel like it. I feel like that was the case even I go through ups and downs, but even just like last week, I don't feel like this question, but that's probably the time you need to do it. And it seems to always play out like that too, because like once I start doing it, I'm like, okay, all right, I'll get back into the flow of things.
It's kind of like working out your physical body.
Yeah.
Working out your emotional and mental body is the same way. The moment you don't feel like going to the gym is when you need to go to the gym. The moment you don't feel like working out your mental and emotional is the moment you need to do it.
Yeah. Because you never come back to it and you're like, I'm really pissed off that I went to the gym today.
Yeah. No. It's like, man, I feel so much better now that I just did that.